meeting. Thank you for being here. We'll do a quick roll call. Tom, please, and then we'll jump into the agenda. Thank you.
Commissioner Brenizer. Here. Commissioner DeBonda.
Here.
Commissioner Ellis.
Here.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Lark. Commissioner Lark. Commissioner Rogers. Commissioner Ruddy.
Here.
Commissioner Sweeney.
Here.
Everyone's here.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Again, welcome to all. Welcome to the new conference room here. Some were with us last month. I think we're in this room, but just a couple of notes. Hypersensitive on the audio. Everybody back here and at the table, they can hear you. So if that light is green, it's on. So everything is live, which is good, right? Everybody online can hear us well. In any hybrid setting, I would just again ask you to identify yourself when you do speak. For those online, the same way. And to note that the meeting is properly advertised in accordance with the Sunshine Law. By way of notice, the Commission conducted an executive session to engage in quasi-judicial deliberation to be adjudicated at the public meeting and engage in attorney-client privilege communication. So with that, let's jump into the public meeting. Commissioners, you have the March 25th minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Ellis on the motion, Mr. Brenizer on the second. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the minutes of March 25, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, and the abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. Tom, to Racing Fund.
Okay, sir. We'll start with the state racing fund. The beginning cash balance was $1,568,000. Revenues for the month were $1,374,000. Expenditures were $1,273,000, leaving an ending cash balance of $1,670,000. On to the commission. Total revenue was $540,000. Personnel were $407,000. Total operating was $62,000. In the individual categories, everything is within budget. There's nothing out of line. Total expenditures are $469,000. Moving on to testing. Total revenue is $834,000. Personnel costs were $352,000. Total operating costs were $433,000. In the individual categories, everything is within budget. The largest piece is obviously the monthly UPenn bill for $408,000. Total expenditures for the month in testing was $786,000. Any questions to this one? Into horse promotions, obviously there's a one-time transfer at the beginning of the fiscal year of $1,863,000. Total expenditures so for the year to date are $1,108,000. As I say again, anyone that has a pending grant, pending reimbursements, it behooves you to turn them in sooner than later. Some have been turned in, they're in process, that will be probably paid, showed for next month, but anyone that hasn't, I strongly urge and recommend you turn in your materials for approval and submission. Moving on into the comparative, year over year, total revenue is a little over $14 million compared to $13 million last year, $13,238,000. The one difference obviously was that the testing money was delayed and it took all the second 6 months to catch up. Expenditures, personnel costs are $8,453,000 versus $7,833,000, about $620,000 or 7% higher. That is due to the increases for personnel negotiated Commonwealth-wide. Total operating expenditures are $7,809,000 versus $7,727,000, within 1% of last year. Total expenditures year-to-date $16,263,000 versus $15,561,000, within 5% of last year. The majority of that increase is reflected in personnel costs. Any questions? The last three sheets are the PA Breeding Fund, the PA Standardbred Breeding Fund, and the sire stakes. Those are the restricted accounts. Mr. Chair, that's the financial report.
Okay, Tom, thank you. Any questions for Tom on the financials? Okay, seeing none. Dr. Robinson, welcome. It's good to see you always. You're going to do a biomarker update.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, thank you. They're going to be pulling up some slides. Don't let them scare you. I know there's some chemical structures on there. I'm not going to be talking about those specifically in detail, so they're just to make the slide look a little bit better. So we started looking at biomarkers over 15 years ago now. You can go ahead to the next slide. So what is a biomarker? A biomarker is any factor that can be objectively measured and serve as a surrogate marker of a physiological or a pathological process, or can serve as a marker of a pharmacological response to a therapeutic intervention. And essentially what that means is that when we take a blood sample or a urine sample and we look in that sample for what's in there, there are substances in there that we can use to understand about the medical condition of the person or horse. So, in medicine, we've been using biomarkers for many, many years. Everyone's seen the A1C commercials, right, on TV about lowering your A1C. A1C is a biomarker for diabetes, and it's very commonly used. We've got lots of different biomarkers that we use in both people and in our animal patients. And so biomarkers can be any number of different types of substances. I've got them all shown there, the different types. We're not going to go into all of that. Next slide. The reason we got interested in looking at biomarkers was because of the use of shockwave therapy. And shockwave therapy, as you may or may not know, is a medical device that is applied to the surface over an injured area of either the limb or the tendon or bone that is injured. This device causes a pressure wave to enter into the tissue and can cause changes in that tissue. The reason it's useful is it increases blood flow to damaged tissue. So if you've got a fracture that's not healing well, it can increase blood flow to that area. If you've got a tendon or a ligament that's not healing well, it can increase blood flow to that area. Those are usually don't have a lot of blood flow to begin with. And so to be able to help those structures heal, shockwave can be very useful. It also decreases nerve sensation to that area. So it is just as effective as using a local blocking agent. So if you give an injection of, like Novocaine when you go to the dentist and they inject something and you can't feel your mouth anymore, we can use that same substance, and shockwave is just as effective as that injection of local blocking agent at blocking pain. And so the reason we were concerned about shockwave is that you can block pain in the animal and have that animal go on to compete and not feel the pain of their injury. And that's why it's banned for the length of time that it is. When we started looking for biomarkers of shockwave, that was to be able to identify horses that had received it inappropriately and then been allowed to race with that treatment. So we've completed a couple of studies now, but I just have two examples up on the slide here. One was looking at protein-based biomarkers, the one on the left. And these graphs are basically showing changes in proteins that are circulating in the blood after getting shockwave, where the arrow indicates on the graph there. And we saw some changes for a pretty significant length of time in some of the biomarkers that we looked at. These are all inflammatory factors that are circulating in the blood and were either upregulated or downregulated after a single administration of shockwave therapy. And the other side of the graph, we're looking at what's called transcriptome changes. So these are changes in mRNA that happen due to this single dose of shockwave. We looked at 3 different time points. There were 45 genes that were suspected to be either upregulated or downregulated after getting the shockwave. And then we went on to validate those using something called RT-PCR. So we ended up validating 7 that were increased in circulating white blood cells and 6 that were decreased in circulating white blood cells for these 3 time points. So that's up to 72 hours. Now, one of the problems with using these as biomarkers to develop a test for shockwave is that they are all inflammatory markers, right? So there's lots of things that can cause inflammation in a horse. Usually we're using shockwave treatment to treat an area of inflammation. And so there's going to be a huge interaction there between the actual biomarkers that we observe and the application of shockwave itself. The other problem with using these as biomarkers for a test is that you can see on the graph there's little error bars there. So the dot in the middle is the average, and then the error bars, the little bars that go up and down, thank you, Ryan, are what show how much variability there was between the individual horses in this study. So we had 6 horses in this study, and you can see that there was a lot of variability between the horses. And so that brings me to my next slide, which is what can we do with this information? Well, what became apparent was that we needed to build an equine biobank. So a biobank is a collection of samples that have been garnered from horses that are either in training or are racing and have either been injured or not injured. And the reason we needed to collect those population samples was because 6 horses is not enough to be able to figure out what's normal for the population. This allowed us to get data from hundreds of horses for these types of markers. And then the other thing it allowed us to do is we partnered with one of our surgeons, and we put in a Grayson Jockey Club grant to also look at the standing CT findings in horses over their first year of training in a prospective study. So all horses that entered this study were getting CT scans to look at the bone morphology and metabolism, and then also getting blood samples collected over time so that we could look at changes in the biomarkers over time in individuals and have that change for the specific individual, not just the population level. And then the other thing, of course, that the biobank helps with is having us have the ability to look at genetic and what's called epigenetic, so the actual DNA of the individual animals. And I threw in circadian rhythms as well, and that's just the variation in some of these markers during an individual day. So this biobank was critical to us understanding what to do with the markers that we had found for shockwave therapy. Go ahead, next slide. So I have to thank the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association for putting up most of the money for the biobank to get us started. We started with some internal funds to initially start the bank, and then the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association have given us 2 sizable donations to maintain and build the bank. And then the Department of Ag State Racing Commission, you all, are now continuing to support the bank as it's been developed and the person that is maintaining this bank. So I have to thank all of you for allowing us to actually build this bank. And then on the next slides, I want to show you kind of what we're doing with these samples. So the hypothesis coming out of that, doing all that work on shockwave is that biomarkers of musculoskeletal injury will be detectable in blood, ideally prior to an obvious lameness, and will be able to help us target which horses then need to have the more expensive diagnostics to see what's going on with them. So this came out of the study that we did with Kyle Lutwerk, with the prospective study looking at horses in their first year of training. When we looked at their bone changes, we could see some changes in some of these horses. If you go to the next slide, Ryan. They've published those changes, so we have quite a bit. It's essentially a catalog now of all the bony changes that were observed in these 41 2-year-olds in their first year of training. Some of them developed these lesions, some of them didn't. And so now we have a very robust bank of samples from all of these horses that we are now being able to interrogate and compare healthy horses to horses that ended up with pathology. Go ahead on to the next slide. So one of the markers I want to highlight, this is an abstract that was presented at the American College of Veterinary Surgeons Summit in Louisville, Kentucky, by one of our veterinary students, Elise Friedman, came and did a summer project with us. She looked at a marker called osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is a marker that detects an increase in bone production. And so I will walk you through these groups. The graph on the left is showing concentration on the y-axis. And on the x-axis, we've got H stands for healthy, 0 stands for the 0 time point before they started training, P stands for disease, pathology, and the 0 again is before they started training. So again, this is from horses that in their first year of training, before we actually knew what was going to happen to them. At that time point when that sample was collected, we didn't know they were going to have pathology, but we were able to go back after we had all the data and pull those horses out. The H6 is the healthy horses 6 months into their first year of training, and P6 are the healthy horses 6 months into their first year of training. And so essentially what those little dots and symbols show you is that there was a very clear difference in the amount of osteocalcin in horses that were healthy versus in horses that ended up developing pathology. So the healthy horses had higher levels of osteocalcin, which would be consistent with increased bone building. And all of the horses with the pathology had much lower levels of osteocalcin. So, potentially because they were not building bone appropriately. The graph on the right now is just showing it's the exact same data, but it's graphed a different way so that you can see the values for the individual horses. So each line on that graph is a horse, and the dark closed circles are the horses that develop pathology, and the open circles are the horses that stayed healthy during their first 6 months of training. And so we've got the osteocalcin levels you can see are going up for the most part for all the horses that stayed healthy, and going down for all the horses that develop pathology or staying level. So that's some exciting data that has come out of this collecting these samples, forming this biobank, and suggests that osteocalcin is a good marker for us to look at in the future. Next slide, please, Ryan. So this is hot off the press. These data were presented last week at the second Dorothy Havermeyer Foundation Equine Performance Workshop in Lexington, Kentucky by Dr. Joanne Hoffman, who is the lead investigator on this. So she used something called RNA sequencing. RNA sequencing is looking at all of the different mRNA markers in the blood sample. So this is the same group of horses, and the intent on this was to try and find additional biomarkers that could be used to identify healthy versus diseased horses. The graph on the left is called a principal component analysis plot. Essentially what that does is takes everything that was measured and tries to figure out if it can use that to divide up the groups. And as you can see, we've got two very clear groups here that are identified by PC1 and PC2. So I know that's a little bit more complicated to understand, but essentially there's two principal components that were able to distinguish the healthy horses from the diseased horses in this big data set. When we go look to see what is in the data set to distinguish them, we did something called a volcano plot. For obvious reason, looks kind of like a volcano. And what this shows you is the values of all the transcripts that were identified and measured. And we used some statistics to figure out which ones are significantly changed over time. Between the healthy and the diseased horses. So in this case, we're comparing the healthy horses to the diseased horses. And on the left side of the graph, the box is circling that there are 6 transcripts that by statistical analysis are significantly downregulated in the diseased horses. And on the right side of the graph, there's 2 in the circle there that are significantly upregulated in the diseased horses. And so this is just hot off the press, some new markers that we need to follow up on and validate that have come out of the work that we're doing with these samples in the biobank. And with that, I think I will take, just to summarize. So we have some biomarkers that have been identified which are associated with bone pathology. The pathology that we're looking at has been suggested to then lead to fracture. You can see in the picture on the right where the pathologies are located and where the fracture lines are also located in 2 different horses. Obviously the limitations is that this was a very small sample size that we used to do the preliminary discovery work. We also don't have training history on these animals, even though we know they were in their first year of training. We did not interrogate the trainers for all their details as to what they were doing. So they did whatever they thought was appropriate for that horse. And finally, we need to continue validating these biomarkers by looking at the larger number of samples that we have in the biobank. We've got samples from over 500 horses at this point, and so we're working on validating these biomarkers. And I think with that, I will take any questions.
Questions? Just talk a little bit about the data set. The 500 horses, are they PA, or is that a national data set?
So the majority of them are from Pennsylvania. We are also close to Fair Hill Training Center, so we do have some horses that we're training at the Fair Hill Training Center in Maryland, so they are based in Maryland.
Is there a distinction between Standardbred and Thoroughbred?
So this biobank is all Thoroughbred
All Thoroughbred.
samples, yes.
Mary, you mentioned the shock wave. At some point, do you think you'll advance enough to where you can determine when a horse was shock wave? Or is that?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think that the markers that we saw are just too non-specific and too variable to be able to use that as a specific test for shockwave. I think what we'll be able to do is say this horse has inflammatory proteins, inflammatory markers that are upregulated that suggest that there's a disease process going on. And some of them may be treated with shockwave and some may not be. But I don't think it's specific enough to actually be able to look specifically for shockwave.
Okay.
When you use the term upregulated down, that's above or below the baseline?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so upregulated is the term that it describes when, so your DNA gets transcribed into RNA, and then RNA gets translated into protein. And so the proteins are what's kind of doing the work of the cell. So when I say a gene is upregulated, it means that the DNA is being transcribed and there's more of that transcription factor present. Sometimes that also means that there's more protein present, but sometimes it doesn't. There's all sorts of regulatory pathways that happen at the RNA level that may or may not result in changes in the protein. So there's all 3 steps that we can look at using the omics technologies to try and understand what is going on in the process.
Is this work happening somewhere else in the world, or is this really unique to?
There's quite a few people working on omics methodologies. So they're in Kentucky. Dr. Alan Page has been also working on biomarker studies. That's the one that's off the top of my head because we collaborate and work together. But yeah, so there is some work that's being done, and we're collaborating and sharing information on it.
It's exciting. Thank you. Questions?
Is there any difference that you guys do with blood flow restriction? Do you guys do any of that type of therapy compared to shockwave?
Blood flow restriction?
Yeah, because I know in humans we test for blood flow restriction, like in order to heal them that way. Do they do that towards horses compared to shockwave therapy?
I'm not familiar with that one. Yeah. I know there are people using hyperbaric oxygen chambers, like for non-healing fractures,
Right.
because that increases the oxygen to that area as well, and similar to
It's
increasing
similar.
blood flow.
Yep.
You're trying to get an increase in oxygen and an increase in the ability of that tissue to heal. So, yeah.
Question? Okay. No thanks to the Horse Breeder Association for support. Thank you. Good. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now for something less complicated, HISA.
Thank you.
I'm going to go there.
A brief update on this. As you're aware, there are 3 components. There's the racetrack safety, which the commission had done a letter agreement back in the beginning of the year. That's in place till the end of December of this year, December 31st of 2025. The other 2 agreements are the IGA, which handles the anti-doping and medication, and the lab services agreement. Both of those are currently, and I would suggest have made ongoing conversations with HISA and IWU. They're trending positively right now to try to come to a final resolution. I'm cautiously optimistic in the next 30 days we may have something to report. Just as an FYI, we've done a number of extensions. The most recent extension is set to expire May 15th. I've had conversations with Lisa Lazarus and Ben Mosier. Based on the timing of this, we're probably going to extend it again. Just as an FYI, remember, after the commission gets done approving it, it still has to pass through OGC and the Attorney General's office. So stay tuned.
Questions on HISA? George, anything to add?
Okay.
Question, yeah, please.
We have received our assessment numbers from HISA. My goal was to start, not my goal, but what we were going to be forced to do is start June 1st. Because, and at the start of the meeting, Prescott. Should I wait until this, or?
My suggestion is, why don't you give me a call at the beginning of next week?
That's easy.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Again, just a reminder, speaking to spell your name. We have you. We're covered. We got you.
MOSTOLLER. PODD.
Okay. All right. Yeah, on to administrative action.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you have two administrative actions. The first one is we'll be seeking a motion to approve the simulcast calendars for the Standardbred racetracks for May of 2025. That would be for Harris, Philadelphia, Mohegan Sun, Pocono Downs, and the Meadows.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. I got a motion, Commissioner Brennheiser, Commissioner Hoffman, second. Discussion of this motion, which is the simulcast calendars for the Standardbred tracks. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next motion is to approve the simulcast calendars for the Thoroughbred tracks for May 2025. That would be for Parks, Penn National, and Presque Isle Downs.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones on the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Ellis on the second. Discussion. Hearing none, those in favor of approving the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Tony?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a reminder for those that are online, please spell your name for the benefit of the court reporter. Normally we start off with Scott Lisha, but Scott's not with us today, so we're going to go to Chris McErlane for the report from the Meadows. Chris, are you on?
Yes, Tony, thank you. Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Chris McErlane, MC, capital ERLEAN, representing the Meadows. Not a whole lot to report. Meadows was on a break in April for about a week and a half. There was some track work done, some what's called scarifying of the track surface to get it a little bit looser and softer underneath. Came back with great results. It's a program we've been doing a couple times a year. We're back to racing now, 4 days a week schedule, and the Pennsylvania Sire Stakes start this coming weekend. And like everyone who I'm sure will follow me in terms of Kentucky Derby, always a big day at all our properties. Meadows is ready. Most of our seating and hospitality areas are already sold out for Derby. So hopefully good weather and hopefully a good day overall for Kentucky Derby Day.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We'll go to Mike Zollinger from Pocono. Mike?
Thank you, Tony. Commissioners, it's Mike, M-I-K-E, Zollinger, Z-U-L-L-I-N-G-E-R. And just like everybody else, just getting prepared for Derby this coming weekend. Expecting huge crowds again, as always. Other than that, this coming Sunday, May 4th, we start our 4th day racing week at 6 p.m. on Sundays, and that will continue through the end of August, and then we'll drop back to 3 days again. Other than that, not much else happening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Barry Brown from Harris. Barry?
Thanks, Tony. Barry Brown, B-A-R-R-Y-B-R-O-W-N, Director of Racing for Harris, Philadelphia. We opened our 2025 season this past April 11th. The season's off to a really, really good start. And like everybody else has said, we are excited about the next several weeks, especially the month of May with the Derby and the start of the Triple Crown. And then on the live racing side, later in the month, on Mother's Day, we have our annual big Mother's Day crowd with Elvis performing here at Harris, Philadelphia. And then later in the month, Harris Invitational Sunday with some of the best harness horses in the country. So we're excited about the next several weeks. Thank you, Tony.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Joe Wilson from Parks. Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Joe Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N. Nothing really to report other than just, like everyone else, just geared up for Kentucky Derby this Saturday and looking forward to a great spring.
Okay, thank you,
That's all I
Joe.
got.
Thanks, Joe. Eric Johnson from Penn National. Eric?
I guess I can deliver from back here with this new scientific system. Eric Johnston, Johnston, first name E-R-I-C. Happy to be back to racing. Took a little hiatus there in the month of April. Started back last week. Just a chance to let the employees catch their breath and the horses to catch their breath as we go back into the summer. May obviously is one of our busiest times of the year between Triple Crown and then the Penn Mile on May 30th. So very excited. Special post time on each of those Triple Crown days at 2 o'clock. We will not race the preceding Wednesday on each of those weeks. Special post time on Penn Mile Day, which is a Friday evening. That'll be 5 o'clock once again. And we're looking for a really, really big month. So very excited moving forward, and hopefully the whole summer's a great year.
Thank you, Eric. Matt Ennis from Presque Isle. Matt?
Yes, Matthew Ennis, M-A-T-T-H-E-W, last name E-N-N-I-S, Senior Director of Operations here at Presque Isle Downs. We recently opened our backside on Monday, April 21st. First day of training was Wednesday the 23rd. We have about 150 horses here now and expecting a packed back house this year. First day of racing is scheduled for Monday, May 19th. We're working with HISA and going through our required emergency exercises such as starting gate malfunction, loose horse, medical emergencies, rider down, etc. Want to get that accomplished before live racing begins. And like everyone else, we are planning for our party environment this weekend with a sold-out house for our parent company's Kentucky Derby this Saturday. So should be a fun weekend. That's all I have.
Okay, Matt, thank you. Before I go on to the other industry reports, I just wanted to bring up something before I forget. This morning in executive session, some commissioners had made a suggestion about a report from the stakeholders. As you know, we had several meetings going back a couple months about the status of racing in general in Pennsylvania and just in general. And we were looking for something from the stakeholders, the racetracks, the horsemen's groups, something in writing on what they think came out of those meetings, what you think ideas you may have moving forward for some sort of suggestions on how we can better racing. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with the declining slot revenue. We're racing yet less days. I think what the commissioners are looking for is just something from each individual racetrack and horsemen's association in some sort of written form with any suggestions or ideas that might have come out of those meetings or you might have had since those meetings. Because I'm sure you've all had other meetings with other groups and everybody's facing the same issues. So if you can get that to us. Sorry, Russell.
Not particularly pertinent to what you just said, but I wondered if Wilson was still there and could bring us up to date on the state of the turf course at Parks, because I know we had some significant problems with it last year. I wonder whether he has any estimate as to when and if there will be turf racing at Parks.
Joe?
Yeah, Commissioner, so obviously we will not be opening that in the spring, and we're going to continue to work on it and evaluate it, and the hopes are that we will come back on the turf after our break in August.
Okay.
I Thank you, Joe.
Welcome.
So if you guys could just put something together, something on paper, and get it back to the commission, hopefully for the next commission meeting, that would be greatly appreciated. So now we'll go on to the Horsemen's Association. Sam or Mike? Mike?
Mike Harant, Harant. I have no report, but Barry Brown just texted me and forgot to say that on both the Invitational Day and Mother's Day, we're going to have a family fun day at Chester. He just wanted me to add that, but I have no report.
Thanks, Mike. We have both Donnell and Lisa. Which one of you guys want to take it, Lisa? Donnell?
Donnell Mock, DAWNELLEMOCK. First, I just want to thank Tony, Daryl, and Jason for all coming out to Hunter's Tribute Walk. That meant a lot, so thank you guys for being there. I'm sorry if I forgot anyone. Just upcoming, we have Derby Day coming up, so we're excited for that. The MSOA is having our annual hat contest, a DJ on the apron, and obviously to kick off the stakes racing. And then we have our Friday night coming up at the end of the month with our wiener dog races, and that kicks off Friday nights for the summer. So that's all we have.
I know Donnell, earlier in the executive session, I mentioned to the commissioners about the way that the MSOA and the Meadows handled the whole Hunter Myers accident and the ceremony that you guys put together. And it seemed like it kind of said it was okay to go on, is what it seemed like that day. And I think everybody appreciated the way you guys handled everything. And so my kudos to both you and the Meadows and the Horsemen. So, Todd Mosteller. Todd?
No report.
Jeff Matty. Jeff, are you on?
Yes, thanks, Tony. First name's Jeff, Jeff, last name Matty, Matty, PTHA Executive Director. Like everyone else, just excited for the Kentucky Derby this Saturday. Smarty Jones was elected into the National Racing Hall of Fame last week. So I think obviously the horse did all the heavy lifting, but I want to thank the Chapman family, the Service family. It's been a long time overdue in my opinion. Speaking for myself and Joe, I think it was just a very well-acknowledged award and achievement that Smarty earned. So the PTHA, as you know, produced a documentary, Ride of a Lifetime. We're hoping with this momentum, we're having some serious talks with Netflix, and we could sort of follow the path of not only Smarty's induction into the Hall of Fame, but Race for the Crown, that new Netflix series. So a lot of good things going on. And last but not least, the PTHA in partnership with Parks is actually opening our brand new Hall of Fame type Smarty Jones exhibit this Saturday. At 11 o'clock on Friday, we're going to open it to the press. Big thanks to Pete Peterson and Ashley Eisenbiel. But it will be open to the general public on Saturday. That'll be on the first floor of the racetrack. And that is, again, that's just a joint venture all around. And Joe and I are very, thankful to Ashley and to Pete for not only helping get this in motion, but to promote it to the local press. So exciting times, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff, and congratulations to you and your staff and your association, because I know you guys worked hard to get Smarty Jones his day, and congratulations, you got it. So,
thank you very much.
Mike or Jim Simpson, Standardbred Readers. Brian, you're up.
Brian Sanfratello, Brian Sanfratello, Executive Secretary of Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. And not only do we have fantastic news this week on Smarty being inducted or getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, which will be at Saratoga Springs on the 1st of August. But we also have a PA bred running on Friday in the Kentucky Oaks, Simply Joking. I think she's done very well so far, and I think she'll do her best there. So I wouldn't be surprised if she shows everyone that Pennsylvania is the place to be. She was bred by Barlar LLC or Larry Carp. And again, Smarty being elected in the Hall of Fame was fantastic. It was great for slots in Pennsylvania 20 years ago. And when he won the Derby and the Preakness, and it was great for Pennsylvania breeding. So again, thanking everyone involved in getting that done, especially Parks and the PTHA. Slot revenue transfers to the breeding fund are listed in your handout. As of the end of March, we were $491,000 above last year's deposit to the breeding fund. Our awards banquet is on May 9th, so anyone that wishes to attend, please let Tom know, and he'll let me know, so that we can get all the final numbers in. Our annual meeting is on May 21st at the Kennett Square Country Club at 4 p.m. All commissioners, staff are invited. Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred is there in your packet. Rich Miller, one of our longtime breeders, and our #1 stallion station in Pennsylvania now, has a great article in there. He's standing 8 stallions right now. He's in Palmyra, which is what, about half hour or so from here, maybe? So if you get a chance, you can stop by. Just let me know, and I'll set up something for you to stop by and take a look at the stallions, and it's a gorgeous farm. Thank you. Any questions?
Brian, you, congratulations too. I know you worked hard on getting Smarty Joneses.
Thank you.
There's no public comment that I know of. Brian, no public comment, right?
Okay, how about commissioner comment? No? Council comment? Very good. All right. Okay, next meeting, May 27, same spot, same time. Any closing comments? If not, just a note of thanks to the commissioners. Appreciate the stakeholders being here, the good work, the exciting Derby weekend that's upon us. And again, just want to shout out to Smarty Jones. Hard to believe it's been 20 years, 21 years, right? But thanks for being persistent. Okay, with that, motion to adjourn. Second, everybody said?
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned.